There comes a point in the soul's journey when all giving turns into exhaustion. The woman awakens, looks around, and realizes that love, once a sacred temple, has become a battlefield. She gave everything: patience, understanding, repeated forgiveness, extended time, and yet the emptiness continues to throb within her like a distant drum. This is the moment when the universe falls silent and something inside her whispers, "The time has come." Alan Watts said that life is not a problem to be solved, but an experience to be lived. And yet, for centuries, women have been taught that to love is to solve problems, to solve the pain of others, to heal their wounds, to fix the immaturity of those who have not yet learned to love. But when love becomes a mission, it ceases to be love. It becomes a prison. This is the first sign or final test of the divine feminine, the sacred weariness. Not ordinary physical or mental exhaustion, but a weariness of the soul, the exhaustion of one who has given too much and finally understands that the inner source is not infinite when disconnected from its own center. It is at this precise point that love ceases to be submission and begins to be awareness. Watts was talking about the paradox of delivery. When you try to control life, it slips away. When you surrender to the flow, it sustains you. This is what love is like when it awakens. It doesn't chase, it doesn't convince, it doesn't beg. It retreats to its center and begins to radiate. And it is in this silent radiation that the masculine, he begins to feel the absence of what was once unconditional. He doesn't understand it immediately. He only feels the emptiness, the lack of something that once nourished him without apparent cost. But this emptiness is not punishment. It's a mirror. Watts taught that the universe is a game of mirrors. Everything you find outside is a reflection of what is inside. The feminine, in withdrawing its energy from a wounded masculine, is not punishing it. It is merely ceasing the reflex. It's like blowing out a candle in a dark room. The silence that emerges isn't destruction, it's space. And in this space, masculinity finds itself without the brilliance it always stole from the light of others. The final test it begins at that moment, when the feminine understands that saving the other is a way of losing oneself. The woman who awakens begins to look at her own reflection and realizes that at some point in her journey, she confused love with sacrifice. He believed that understanding others was nobler than understanding oneself, who confused tolerance with enlightenment. But Watts said that true compassion is not about allowing everything, it's about seeing everything clearly, and clarity is light that wounds before it heals. When a woman finally sees, she can no longer feign blindness. She begins to remember herself, not the role she learned to play, but the presence that existed before any role. It is a return to the primordial feminine, to that force that creates and destroys, that welcomes and expels, that generates worlds and also knows how to bring them to an end. This return is silent, but the silence has a weight that the whole world feels. Because the silence of an awakened woman is not absence, it is a sentence. Alan Watts claimed that the opposite of control is not chaos, it's trust. And the feminine, by ceasing to control love, begins to trust in the hidden order of the cosmos. She realizes that life doesn't take anything away without purpose, that every separation is an energetic reconfiguration. The masculine, sensing the absence, will be called upon to look at its own shadow. Some will flee, others will awaken. But the feminine waits no longer. She understands that waiting is a disguised form of stagnation. Mature love, Watts said, is the meeting of two centers that are already whole. And that is why the feminine, before being loved, first needs, remember yourself. She needs to prove to herself that she is capable of loving without losing herself, of giving herself without diluting herself, of seeing the divine in others without extinguishing the divine within herself. This is the true meaning of energy withdrawal, not physical separation, but a vibrational return to one's own inner temple. And when that temple is reactivated, everything changes. The woman begins to emanate a presence that doesn't seduce, but magnetizes. She doesn't chase after it. The universe runs to her, because the vibration of self-knowledge is irresistible to all that is true. Watts said that no one is able to flourish while trying to be someone else. And the awakened feminine flourishes precisely because it stops trying to be understood and simply it becomes fertile ground where only what is ready can take root. Immature seeds drift away, carried by the winds of unconsciousness. Those that are ready remain and take deep root. This is how genuine love is distinguished from karmic love, not by the intensity of desire, but by the stability of its frequency. The final test is silent, but relentless. There are no manuals, no dates, no external signs, only the inner voice saying, "That's enough now." And at that moment, everything that is false begins to crumble. The wounded male will feel the impact of this withdrawal like an invisible earthquake, and without understanding, he will think he has been punished. But the punishment is merely the natural consequence of having lived sustained by an energy that was not one's own. Watts said that life is like music. It should be enjoyed in its time signature, not forced to the end. The feminine has learned to dance without music. Now, as it regains its rhythm, the entire universe must adjust to its new cadence. Awakening is not revenge. It is cosmic justice. It is the re-establishment of balance between giving and receiving, between flow and presence. The awakened woman does not deny love. She only rejects the love that demands her self-annihilation. She understands that for love to be divine, it needs to be born from freedom, not from neediness. Watts would summarize this by saying, "True love is the act of allowing the other person to be who they are, and of allowing yourself to be whole, even if the other person doesn't keep up." And so, at the end of this first movement, the universe waits in silence. The feminine remains still, radiant, aware of its own power. The male observes, confused, in the face of what he believes to be loss. But it is merely a mirror, and in this reflection, love begins its true purification. Because all energy that returns to its source rises, and every soul that learns to choose itself awakens the sacred that lies dormant in creation. Alan Watts said that pain is not a mistake. It is the intelligence of life trying to restore harmony. And perhaps that is precisely why, on the path to awakening the divine feminine, pain first appears as an enemy, but later reveals itself as a teacher. No illumination process begins with light. It begins with disruption. Love, once idealized as a refuge, transforms into a mirror. And in that mirror, the feminine sees not only the other, but everything she has projected onto them, the inherited deficiencies, the fears of not being enough, the centuries of silence passed down through the voices of ancestors. For millennia, women were taught that to love was synonymous with enduring, and she endured it. It endured the imbalance, the disrespect disguised as spirituality, the absence masked as depth. He endured the other person's silence as if it were a divine mission. Watts, with his disconcerting clarity, reminded us that when love becomes duty, it has already ceased to be love. And it is at this moment that the awakened feminine realizes that something very profound has been distorted. Love has ceased to be a flow and has become a burden. This realization doesn't come in a single flash. It arrives like a slow and persistent tide, invading the spaces previously occupied by hope. The woman begins to feel a subtle unease, an inner discomfort in the face of situations that she previously accepted without question, praise without presence, promises without action, touch without soul. Everything that once seemed normal now sounds like noise in a song she no longer wants to dance to. It is the second movement of awakening, the intolerance towards what is small. Watts said that the awakened soul is like a bell. It vibrates at a frequency that cannot tolerate falsehood. This is the heart of a woman who awakens. He begins to reject what has no truth, not out of arrogance, but out of instinct. Your body senses when something is out of alignment. Your energy shrinks in the face of empty promises. She no longer needs to argue, explain, or ask. Her body speaks for her, and the universe begins to listen. However, this transition is not smooth. She carries the storm of that which dies. There are days when a woman wakes up and misses the old version of herself, the one who believed in happy endings, who waited for answers, who got lost trying to decipher silences. But this mourning is necessary. Watts said that the ego is the ghost of separation, and when the feminine ego tries to revive the old role of savior, the universe gently confronts it. Do you want love, or do you want control? The answer is not easy, because women have been conditioned to believe that controlling is loving, controlling the other person's mood, the timing of their responses, the rhythm of their affection. But true love is sacred anarchy. It flourishes in freedom and withers in expectation. The awakened feminine learns to surrender without losing itself, and that is the most difficult lesson, to remain open without allowing oneself to be hurt. When Alan Watts spoke about the Tao, he described the balance between action and inaction, Tei Wu Wei, and he said that true wisdom is acting without forcing the natural course of things. It is precisely this principle that the awakened feminine begins to embody. She understands that she no longer needs to chase after anything. What is true remains. What is illusory dissolves on its own. She doesn't need to close cycles. Time does that elegantly. All you need to do is remain at the center of your own presence. But this center cannot be reached without traversing chaos. The awakened heart goes through a period of spiritual dryness, the dark night of the soul described by mystics. It is when the silence becomes deafening and love seems to have disappeared from the map of human experience. Watts called this the fertile void, the interval between the end of an illusion and the beginning of a truth. The feminine being that crosses this desert is not being punished. It is being purified, because every soul that matures needs to learn to distinguish between loving and sacrificing. During this process, the universe begins to send subtle signals, synchronicities, unexpected encounters, sudden intuitions. Everything begins to converge on the same lesson. You're not losing anything. You're simply ceasing to support what was already dead. And gradually, the awakened woman begins to feel different. There is no longer any need to justify its value. There is no longer any need to convince someone that they deserve to be loved. She realizes that the love she was seeking was, in fact, a reflection of her own inner emptiness. And when that absence is filled by presence, the miracle happens. The heart stops asking and begins to radiate. Watts said that genuine compassion is the natural state of one who has fully accepted oneself. And this acceptance is the rebirth of the feminine. She is no longer the one who suffers on behalf of others. She is the one who heals herself out of love for her own life. And in this silent healing process, everything around begins to reorganize itself. Old relationships lose their meaning. Voices from the past fade away. People disappear without conflict simply because the vibe has changed. An awakened woman doesn't need to expel anything. Your attendance determines the screening process. What resonates remains. What doesn't resonate simply doesn't find its way to her anymore. This is the third movement of the crossing, the return from vibrational autonomy. Watts described this state as the freedom to be without the need to justify being. The awakened woman finally understands that she doesn't need to shrink herself to be accepted, that she doesn't need to apologize for becoming whole. That sweetness and firmness are not opposites, but complementary expressions of the same strength. She can love deeply and at the same time say no calmly. It can offer tenderness without sacrificing clarity. You can open your heart without sacrificing your dignity. And it is at this point that masculinity feels the shock, because the energy field changes polarity. What was once dependence becomes a mirror image. The masculine, which previously received without giving, now needs to become a source. It needs to learn to generate what it has always extracted. Watts would say, that's how the universe teaches, by taking away what you take for granted. The absence of the awakened feminine is an invitation for the masculine to be reborn. Meanwhile, the woman no longer observes him with anger, but with lucid compassion. She understands that the other person is not the enemy, but a reflection of her former unconsciousness. And so, without needing to prove anything, she sets him free. Not because he despises him, but because he knows that only true love is capable of letting go of what it loves. And the universe, in gratitude, begins to conspire in your favor. Alan Watts said that liberation happens when we stop confusing the river with its banks. The awakened woman understands that love is not the other person. Love is the flow. And those who learn to flow never fear losing again, because he knows that everything that is his, through its frequency, always returns. The awakened heart traversed the labyrinth. He no longer seeks exits, for he has discovered that the center was within him all along. The feminine now breathes with the rhythm of the cosmos, and the universe, in reverence, bows before the vibration of one who has finally chosen themselves. Alan Watts said that life is the game the universe plays with itself to remind you who you are. And the awakening of the divine feminine is one of the most beautiful movements in this game. For in it, the cosmos itself, through the consciousness of the woman, decides to return to itself, decides to withdraw its projections, gather the energy dispersed in rescues, and return it to its original source. The final test is not a punishment, but a return to cosmic harmony. It is the moment when love, stripped of all human illusions, reveals its true nature, to be freedom in the form of presence. But to understand this test, it is necessary to understand the nature of separation. Watts reminded us that there is no real other. There is only the self disguised as another. Masculine and feminine are two sides of the same mirror, reflecting each other infinitely until both awaken to the fact that they were never truly separate. For millennia, this illusion of separation has sustained the dance of suffering, the masculine seeking to control the feminine, and the feminine trying to heal the masculine. Both were trapped in the same illusion that love was something to be conquered, not something that already constituted them. Jung called this process-projected collective unconscious, when internal forces, not understood, are projected onto the other. The woman projected onto the man the lost part of her own power, believing that she would find it again outside of him. The man projected onto the woman the soul he had repressed, believing that he possessed her. And so for ages, they both searched for each other without realizing that what they were seeking was themselves reflected in the other's mirror. The final test comes when the feminine awakens and decides to break this cycle, not because they stop loving, but because they finally understand that true love is not a search, it's a remembrance. Watts said that we are like waves that believe they are separate from the ocean. The awakened feminine ceases to be the desperate wave seeking unity and remembers that it has always been the sea. She realizes that masculinity never completed her. It only mirrored the degree of her own disconnection. And when she takes her gaze away from the mirror and turns her eyes inward, the energy begins to return to its center. It is at this moment that the entire universe reorganizes its geometry around her. Because when a woman awakens, she doesn't awaken alone. She awakens the collective archetype of the feminine in all dimensions. But the test is not easy. Spiritual awakening is not a sunrise. It is an inner eruption. Watts compared this process to the lotus flower. It only opens after emerging from the mud. The feminine needs to emerge from the mire of centuries of conditioning, from the voices that told it that to love was to suffer, that to understand was to tolerate the intolerable, that patience was a virtue even when it meant self-denial. The journey is lonely, and the world tries to call her back, offering old roles and old guilts. But she has already heard the voice of awakening, and there is no way to unhear it. At this stage, the woman begins to realize how much human love has been shaped by fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. And then he understands that fear is the opposite of love. Watts said that the pursuit of security is the denial of life, and love, in its purest form, is life itself manifesting without guarantees. Thus, the ultimate test consists of abandoning the desire to control love, ceasing to measure, predict, and calculate it. It's about allowing love to be what it is, a state of being, not a transaction. But there's an even deeper point. The test requires the integration of the inner masculine. Jung taught that every woman carries within her a masculine principle, the animus. As long as this animus is projected outward, she will depend on male figures to validate her own worth. But when she integrates it, she no longer needs to be chosen, because she understands that she is already the very movement of divine choice. Watts would put it this way by saying, "You are not an isolated part of the universe. You are the universe expressing itself through a specific point of view." Thus, when a woman awakens and unites with her inner masculine, she stops waiting for someone to complete her. She is already the whole circle. This is the true meaning of the energy contraction that is so often talked about. It's not about physically distancing oneself, but about ceasing to identify with incompleteness. It is when the feminine ceases to be the energy that chases and becomes the magnetic field that attracts what resonates. Watts said that music doesn't rush to get to the last note. Similarly, the awakened feminine does not rush to have love. She enjoys the movement of her own vibration. And this vibration is so high that anything false simply cannot remain in it. Mismatched connections break down not through rejection, but through differences in density. The false is not punished. It simply does not survive the truth. However, this process has a powerful side effect. The masculine is called upon to evolve because the energy field of the awakened feminine no longer accepts the presence of anything that does not vibrate in integrity. And the masculine, upon sensing this absence, is pushed into its own emptiness. Watts called this the return of sound to silence. It is in this silence that masculinity needs to learn to listen to itself. Without the constant reflection of feminine energy, he finds himself facing the most feared mirror, that of himself. Some flee, others resist, but those who remain, they are reborn. Jung said that what we deny in ourselves returns as destiny. The masculine, who has always run from his own sensitivity, is now forced to encounter it, and the woman, who has always tried to compensate for this absence with excessive giving, needs to learn to remain still in the face of chaos. This is the most difficult part of the test: delivery without interference. Watts would call this Wu Wei, effortless action, movement without imposition. It is when the feminine understands that its task is not to change the other, but simply to be. And this being is the most powerful transformative force in the universe. When the feminine reaches this state, something mystical happens. Time seems to slow down. The air becomes denser. Synchronicities intensify. She feels there is an invisible intelligence moving everything, and there is. Watts said, "You are the universe playing at forgetting who you are so you can rediscover yourself." The final test is the conclusion of this game. It is when forgetting ends and the memory becomes permanent. The woman understands that the love she sought in the other was the love that the universe itself sought in her. And when she finally chooses herself, she not only liberates herself, she liberates the very masculine principle from the illusion of superiority. This is the most hidden secret of awakening. The feminine did not come to punish the masculine. It came to redeem it. But to redeem oneself, one must first remove the food of addiction. Watts said that darkness is not the opposite of light. It is the womb that will gestate it again. By withdrawing, the feminine creates the space for the masculine to rediscover its own divine spark. And in this reunion, they dance again, no longer as predator and prey, but as conscious poles of the same primordial love. The final test ends where it all began, inside the heart. The woman, now fulfilled, looks at the world with serene eyes. There is no more urgency, no more pain, no more waiting. There is only the recognition that everything has always been love, even the pain, even the silence, even the loss. Watts said that life is the sound of the universe laughing at itself, And the woman finally laughs when she awakens, because she understands that there was never anything to forgive, only to understand. She is both feminine and masculine, the sun and the moon, the mirror and its reflection. And the universe, through her, finally remembers love was never two, it was always one, dancing in opposite directions. Alan Watts said that reality is a constant flux of change, and resisting that flux is the source of all suffering. The divine feminine, upon passing the ultimate test, becomes the living embodiment of this understanding. She can no longer resist what is dissolving. She no longer tries to hold on to what life, wisely, wants to take away. She observes the current of destiny like a river that knows every bend, every drop, every whirlpool, and she trusts it. For now she knows the river is never lost. It only changes form. This is the moment when the entire universe seems to breathe with her. There is something sacred in this silence, something that cannot be explained, only felt. It's as if life finally stops testing and starts conspiring. Watts called this state vibrational synchronicity. When human consciousness aligns with cosmic intelligence, everything that resonates draws closer. Everything that vibrates in dissonance simply dissolves, and the awakened woman becomes the point of convergence for this universal movement. People sense her presence even before they see her. She no longer talks about what she learned, she and what he learned. His energy is so serene that it disarms the defenses of anyone who approaches him. But it is also so integral that it automatically repels anything dissonant. This is the true power of the divine feminine, the power of not needing to prove anything. Watts said, "The flower does not compete with the flower next to it. It simply blooms." And so the awakened woman blossoms without asking permission, without announcing, without apologizing for existing in her totality. But this flourishing comes at a price, the price of sacred solitude, because few can remain in the presence of someone who truly vibrates with emotion. Intense light is not cruel, but it reveals, and what she reveals isn't always comfortable. That's why many people stay away. Some will call her cold, others distant, others arrogant, but she doesn't answer. She knows that the language of spiritual maturity is silence, because when the heart has understood, words become unnecessary. Jung said that individuation is the process of becoming who you really are, and that is rarely comfortable. The awakened feminine experiences precisely this paradox. She feels the weight of isolation, but also the lightness of freedom. She discovers that true companionship comes from within her own soul, and that the love the universe has for her is so vast that it cannot be contained within a single human relationship. Watts said that, "You are something the universe is making, just as a wave is something the ocean is making. The awakened woman is that wave, fully aware of being the sea itself. In this state, love ceases to be a feeling and becomes a vibration. She begins to perceive the other not as a person, but as a frequency. She can sense when a soul is ready and when it is not yet. There are no more judgments, only discernment. This discernment is what Jung called wisdom of the self, the ability to see without being hurt, to understand without absorbing. And the awakened feminine at last understands. There is nothing to save. Everything that needs healing will be healed by presence, not by effort. But there is something extraordinary at this point in the journey, the return of creative energy. Watts said that when you stop fighting against what is, all the energy used in resistance is transformed into vitality. The awakened woman experiences this literally. The vitality that was previously drained in one-sided relationships begins to circulate freely throughout the body, rekindling forgotten gifts. She feels the urge to create, to dance, to write, to teach. The energy of life, previously trapped in old pains, transforms into active light. Love, once spent trying to keep the other awake, now awakens the world itself, and the universe responds. Projects manifest themselves easily. Paths open up effortlessly. People who vibrate at the same frequency appear as if they've always been there, waiting for the right moment. Watts said, "When you stop chasing what you believe is lacking, what is true begins to run toward you." This is the miracle of non-seeking, the natural manifestation of what resonates with your being. But there is still the invisible climax, the one that defines the journey, the reunion with the masculine, not the man, but the principle. When the awakened feminine achieves self-mastery, the universe creates a mirror, a presence that reflects its new state of consciousness. It's not the return of the X, nor the twin flame in the romantic sense. It is the return of cosmic harmony, both within and without. Watts said that there is no true duality, only poles of the same field dancing to recognize each other. And in this reunion, there is no more pain, no more demands, no more waiting. There is only silent recognition, the masculine and the feminine remembering that they are the same energy expressed in distinct forms. The awakened feminine does not ask the masculine to change. She simply invites it through example. And the masculine, faced with this new vibration, feels a profound calling, not to justify itself, but to elevate itself. He understands that the old power structure no longer sustains him because the power that dominates is not real. It is disguised fear. Watts said that whoever tries to control life is always at war with it. And so the wounded masculine realizes that there is only one path to freedom: surrender. Not the surrender of weakness, but the surrender of resistance. This moment of mutual recognition is the energetic peak of the final test. It is when the feminine and the masculine cease to be two separate entities and become conscious polarities within the same field of love. Watts said that true spirituality is dancing with life without trying to conduct the music. And that's exactly what happens here. The cosmic dance begins again, but now in harmony. The masculine learns to listen, the feminine learns to trust, and the universe finally begins to breathe in rhythm again. But perhaps the greatest miracle of awakening is not the reunion of the poles. It is the serenity that arises when there is no longer a need to reunite anything. The awakened woman understands that she is already complete, and it is this completeness that makes her magnetic. Watts said, "You don't need to seek what already is. Just acknowledge yourself, and the universe will do the rest." And it is in this state of silent recognition that the world begins to change. Because when the awakened feminine walks, the planet itself recognizes her. The earth vibrates in harmony with the heart that has begun to beat again in truth. And love, the kind that seemed to have been lost, returns, not as passion, but as living awareness. The divine feminine smiles. There are no more questions. There are no more tests. There is only the flow. And in the flow, the soul rests in the sound that has always been playing behind all the pain. The sound of the universe remembering itself. Watts would call this God's laughter. The moment when love realizes it never stopped being love. Alan Watts said that enlightenment is not escaping the fire. but becoming the fire itself. And that is exactly what happens when the divine feminine crosses the final threshold. After the silence comes the combustion. The soul begins to burn with an intensity that consumes what is false, what is petty, what is fear, disguised as love. It is no longer the flame that seeks to warm another. It is the primordial fire of the Spirit, the fire of remembering who one always was. The universe watches in awe, because the awakening of the feminine is not just human, it's cosmic. Each woman we choose ignites a sleeping star in the field of collective consciousness. Every time she says no to what diminishes her, the entire universe says yes to balance. Watts said that the universe plays a game of hide and seek with itself eternally. And at this moment in history, the feminine is rediscovering itself. After millennia hidden beneath the weight of submission, the creative principle begins to rise again. But now, not with fury, but with clarity. It is a serene, irresistible, invisible, and unbreakable force. He doesn't shout. He doesn't demand. He doesn't threaten. Just and. And this simple being has more power than any armed revolution. Because while the world tries to change from the outside in, the awakened feminine changes from the inside out, and the world moves on. Watts said, "True change doesn't happen when we push the river, but when we flow with it." An awakened woman doesn't push anything. She becomes the river itself, and everything that cannot keep up with her is naturally left behind. But the test is not over yet. Before fire can become light, it must consume whatever prevented it from shining. And this process is painful. The soul is called to revisit everything that still vibrates with fear, ancestral guilts, the voices that said, "You are too much," the gazes that tried to diminish its magnitude. This is the moment when the universe asks one last time, "Are you willing to be whole, even if it costs you everything your former self called love?" Watts would say that freedom requires the courage not to return to the familiar, and this courage is what the awakened feminine needs now. She feels tempted to return to the comfort of familiar pain, that relationship she already knows, that dynamic she knows how to manage, that silence she has learned to justify. But the inner fire won't allow it, because true awakening no longer fits within familiar cages. She can no longer pretend she doesn't know what she knows. She can no longer lower her vibration to fit into small affections. Consciousness does not regress, and it is at this point that the test transforms into destiny. The woman begins to walk with a different posture. There is a silent authority in his gaze. It's not arrogance, it's awareness. She knows she no longer needs permission to exist fully. Watts said, "Love is the recognition of the divine in another being." But now, the awakened feminine understands the hidden complement of that phrase. Love begins with the recognition of the divine within oneself. And when she recognizes him, the world recognizes her too. Because the universe responds to the vibration of certainty. In this state, the injured male collapses. The absence of the energy that sustained him forces him to look into the void he had always avoided. The feminine does not reject it. It merely observes it. She understands that the fall of the masculine is not punishment, but purification. Watts said that pain is the universe's way of forcing you to pay attention. And now, the masculine is being called to attention. He needs to learn how to generate his own light. He needs to learn to love not the woman, but the divine within her, the same divine being he had forgotten within himself. This is the most powerful stage of the final test, because the feminine no longer fights against the masculine. It invites it to awaken, and the man who accepts this invitation becomes a pillar, no longer the king who dominates, but the guardian who sustains. Watts said that true masculinity is not about domination over others, but about self-mastery. And this is what the awakened masculine learns when faced with the fire of the conscious feminine. He understands that the power he once feared is the same power that now sets him free. And when both, male and female, meet again at this new vibrational level, something mystical happens. There is no more tension, no more dispute, no more paperwork. There is a silent dance between two whole consciousnesses. Watts called this the divine game, the cosmic game in which the one divides into two just to experience the pleasure of reuniting. And it is this meeting that marks the end of the test. But before the end, there is the revelation. The woman realizes that she was never tested by the universe. She was tested by herself. Every disappointment, every weight, every tear, every night, she wondered if she was asking for too much. It was all part of the plan she herself had drawn up before she was born. Watts said, "You are something the universe is making right now." And the universe, through her, was remembering what it's like to love without losing oneself. At this point, the fire begins to turn into light. The ashes of the old self transform into fertile ground for the new being. She realizes she no longer needs to choose between love and freedom, because true love is freedom in the form of encounter. And freedom, when it matures, becomes love in the form of presence. This is the alchemical fusion of the awakened feminine, love and freedom becoming one frequency. The universe vibrates in resonance. The stars silently seem to wink in approval, because every soul that awakens releases thousands of others from the same cycle of forgetfulness. The fire of the divine feminine is contagious. It doesn't destroy, it purifies, and the world is slowly beginning to feel the warmth of this new awareness. Watts said that when you understand who you really are, fear becomes laughable, and the woman wakes up and laughs. She laughed at what limited her, at what hurt her, at what she believed defined her. She laughs because she remembers nothing was against her. Everything was at her service. The fire consumes the last vestige of guilt, and what remains is pure light. Light that doesn't argue, doesn't convince, doesn't promise. It simply illuminates. And this light is the call that awakens other sleeping hearts, because awakening is viral. An ignited soul reignites the world. Watts said that the purpose of life is to be touched by the mystery, not to solve it. And the woman awakens, now a living light, letting the mystery guide her. She no longer seeks to understand. She experiences. She no longer tries to control it. She gives in. She doesn't need to prove it anymore. She is. And in this being, the entire universe rests. Because love at last found form in a human soul that dared to remember its origin. Alan Watts said that the end of a melody is not its death. It is merely the point where the music becomes silence so that it can begin again. And it is in this silence that the divine feminine now rests. There is no longer any need to prove, to search, to understand. What was once a battleground between love and expectation has transformed into a tranquil garden where everything blooms in its own time. The heart, once weary of waiting, now merely observes, and in observing finds God. The final test is over, but it didn't end as we imagined, with victories or defeats. reunions, or separations. He finished clearly, with the serene clarity of someone who understood that love was never something to conquer, but something to remember. Watts said, "You don't come into the world, you emerge from it, like a wave emerges from the sea." And the awakened feminine understands this in every breath. She is not in the universe. She is the universe in the form of a woman. Everything she experienced, the sleepless nights, the silences of others, the absences, the waiting, were not punishments, but gateways. Each pain was a teacher. Every disappointment is a mirror. Every loss is an initiation. And now, looking back, she feels not regret, but gratitude, because the love that seemed to have gone away was, in fact, simply transforming into awareness. Watts said, "When you understand the game, suffering transforms into dancing," and she dances, no longer to please, but to exist. The awakened woman became a presence, and presence is the purest form of love. She walks among human beings as one who reminds them that each one is their own forgotten divine being. She smiles not out of naivete, but out of wisdom. She knows that every soul will find its time to awaken, that all pain has a purpose, and that true love doesn't need to be sought. It just needs to be allowed. In this state of consciousness, the woman does not seek relationships. She creates communions. She doesn't seek to be understood. She expresses herself. No need to adapt anymore. She inspires. Its energy, once fragmented in attempts to save, is now a source that nourishes the world. She became the very feminine principle of the cosmos, the energy of creation, gestation, and life. Watts said that the meaning of life is simply to live and to be conscious of it. And that's exactly what she does. She lives, fully aware that living is the most sacred act of all. The man, looking at her, feels something he has never felt before: reverence. Because when faced with true femininity, there is no desire for dominance. There is a desire for communion. He understands that his strength is not a threat, but an invitation. And the masculine spirit that awakens from this vibration understands that protecting the feminine is not about controlling it, but about sustaining the space where it flourishes. This is the new dance of consciousness. The awakened feminine neither subjugates nor is subjugated. She dances in parity with the divine. Watts said that God is the energy of the universe pretending to be you. And the woman wakes up and smiles because she finally understood the game. She realizes that everything she has experienced, the waiting, the exhaustion, the rebirth, was God playfully remembering her through her. The final test was simply the moment when the soul had to choose to continue begging for love or to become love itself. And she chose. She chose to be love in its purest form. And the entire universe responded, "So be it." Now, the fire of awakening subsides. Ashes become fertile ground. And from this land, a new cycle is born. Lighter, more conscious, more luminous. The woman who underwent the test is no longer the same. She holds no grudges, seeks no explanations, and demands no reciprocation. She became the living reflection of the integration between spirit and matter. Watts would say that the goal of spirituality is not to escape the world, but to see the world with new eyes. And those eyes now see everything as sacred, even what hurt her. She understands that the punishment the male felt was never imposed. It was a reflex, a reflection of the emptiness he himself had created by confusing love with power. And he understands that his role was never to correct the other person, but to remind them of what they also are: light. disguised as shadow. The awakened feminine no longer seeks to divide. Ela one, not by force, but by vibration. And this vibration is so pure that it dissolves fear wherever it goes. Watts said that the mind that learns to rest discovers that it is already free, and the woman's heart, now awakened, rests, not because he gave up, but because he understood that nothing is lost in the universe. It only changes form. The love she offered returned multiplied, not in people, but in peace. And this peace is the hallmark of true awakening. She looks at the sky. There is an ancient serenity in his eyes. The wind touches her hair and seems to whisper, "It's over." But she knows that nothing ends. It only transforms. The ultimate test of the divine feminine is not an endpoint. It is an eternal initiation. And the woman who crosses it not only changes her life, she changes the field of consciousness of the planet, because every heart that is chosen frees thousands of others from the same pattern of forgetfulness. Watts said, "Individual liberation is the liberation of all, because we are one being disguised as many." And the awakened woman is that being who is remembered. Now the world seems different, but it's she who has changed. The love he sought has become the ground he walks on. The peace he hoped to find has become the air he breathes. And the divine, once distant, became the mirror. The test is over, but love, true love, is only just beginning. If this content resonated with you, if at any point in your journey you felt the calling to choose yourself, to love without abandoning yourself, to honor your light, even when the world doesn't understand it. So this is your moment. Leave your like right in the comments. I choose my own essence. And subscribe to continue awakening with the wisdom of the cosmos, because the universe always rewards those who have the courage to remember who they are. And today, you remembered.